think the story. I'm absolutely honored today to have the one and only Bob Burg, best-selling author, multiple speaker across many different countries, and legend within the industry. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Sabrina, the honor is mine. And since you're from the UK, when I say honor, I mean Honour. You need to spell it properly.
100%. So, Bob, for any readers or listeners who aren't quite sure of your work, I'd love for you to give a little bit of an outline, because some of the different pieces you've out there have actually been the core fundamentals to so many other books.
Oh, thank you. Well, had begun as a broadcaster, first in radio and then television, and then I graduated into sales and really enjoyed that. Loved the part of it that was really the personal development aspect. And that's when I really began my education. I was not a good student in school or college, university. It was after I got into sales and started really understanding the people aspect of life, which really is what selling is. And you know, a lot of people don't know that the word, the old English root of the word sell is selan, which means to give. So when you're selling, you're giving time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and ultimately immense value to others. So really just enjoying sales and personal development led to speaking on the topic eventually, and then writing a series of books with John David Mann.
Amazing. And you have so many books. I have the Go Giver Influencer here. Tell me a little bit about how all this series started, because it was quite a spiral effect from the Go Giver, and everyone said, hey, Bob, we want some more. How did that spiral into a series of books, and what's different about all the other books as well?
Yeah, well, so my first book was written in the early 90s. I'd been speaking on sales for a few years after, again, having a career in sales. And it was my book was called Endless Referrals. It was a how-to book, and it was really based.
Oh, I think we've lost Bob. Let's see if I can get him on back. Let's have a little look. Hopefully that was just a little Wi-Fi fun out. Dun. Well, that was a beautiful moment when it lasted, but let's see if I can find out where Bob may have potentially gone to. Hello, Bob, you're back.
So sorry about that. That was my fault. The thing came up on the screen. I tried to get rid of it so that I could see the screen. I shut us off.
No worries. Your answer was too good. It blew you away.
Are you okay to edit it, or do we need to start over? We can start over.
I'll start the question again, but we can edit it all out. No worries at all.
Okay.
Sorry. Amazing. No worries. Well, we were just speaking about your multiple books, and one of the most interesting parts is the fact of how you had the one book and it went into multiple books, and now you have a stream. So I'd love you to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So my first book was written in the early 90s. It was called Endless Referrals: Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales, and it was really a how-to book. Designed for entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought wonderful value to those they served, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable going out into their local marketplace and developing the kinds of relationships that would cause people to want to do business with them directly, as well as refer them to others. So it was really, it was a system. It was how to create those, what we call know, like, and trust relationships. In fact, the basic premise was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. So, but again, it was a how-to book, but I'd always read parables since I'd started, the process of learning sales and reading. Always enjoy. I think parables, which are stories, they connect on a deeper level, on more of a heart-to-heart level than simply how-to book. Both have their place. I've read, I don't know, hundreds or maybe thousands of how-to books, but I also love reading parables. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could, excuse me, take that basic know, like, and trust premise from endless referrals and put it into a parable, into a short story that people could really connect with. And so I thought, well, entitling it, what is the basic element of that person, that entrepreneur or salesperson who can very quickly and sustainably create these know, like, and trust relationships. And it comes down to the fact that they're givers. They're always looking to give value, give benefit to others. So coming up with the title, The Go Giver, was fairly natural. Now, the best thing I did for the book, though, was asking John David Mann, who at the time I knew as editor in chief of a magazine I used to write for. I asked him, he back then, he had a great reputation as being a fantastic writer and storyteller. So I asked him, I told him about this little idea I had and a very basic kind of sketchy outline, and I asked if he would care to work with me on it and really take it into a parable. And he liked the idea, fortunately. And so, we worked on it together, but he's the lead storyteller. I'm a how-to author. I'm step one, step three. John's a great storyteller and writer. So it was really, I credit him so much for making the story really come alive.
No, it's amazing how both of you together, the how to as well as the storytelling, and combining both elements, it allows people to have something to really implement and to start thinking
Right.
about how they can use it. But it also tells it in a really fun and engaging way. And I do think that's a huge contributing factor. One mentioning that you part was giving value. And I think value is one of the most overused words, but also the most underutilized words. And I'd
Ah,
love you
I
to
love
talk
how
a
you put it.
little bit more about what you mean by giving value.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you said it. Overused, underutilized. Exactly. So what is value? Let's look at value as compared to price, which is usually what people equate it with, and it's not. See, price is a dollar figure or a pound figure or however whatever the currency is. Okay, value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. So, we could take the idea of the accountant who you engage to do your taxes, and she charges you, we'll just name a round figure, £1,000. Okay. And that's her price, right? But what value is she giving you in exchange? Well, through her hard work, her determination, her getting to know you and your business and how specifically it relates to you, she's able to save you £5,000. She also provides you, or saves you countless hours of time. She also provides you and your family with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly.
Mhm.
So while the price was £1,000, the value she provided you was well over £5,000. She gave you more in value than she took in payments. So you feel great about it, and she also made a very healthy profit. Here's the important part, though, and I think, Sabrina, this is really the key. It's that this happened not because she was focused on her fee. She was focused on the immense value she was providing you. And that's why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value, right? Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning, which means nothing more than the value must be the focus. The value comes first. The money you receive is a natural result of the value you've provided.
I think it's so powerful. You're going to have listeners thinking, oh my goodness, I never thought about it in that particular way. And I
Okay.
can imagine them starting to implement it within their personal life and in their business. And one very interesting element that you've also mentioned with the influencer is how having influence, in a sense, having that kind of thought, is a lot to do with self-reflection and a lot to do with taking a step back and thinking internally rather than trying to change the situation. How can I change myself to adapt the situation? And I'd love for you to deep dive into the mental aspect of how can one person prepare in order to push themselves forward, rather than thinking about trying to change the other person, they start to try and think about how they can change themselves.
Well, I think in a sense both come into play. In order to help another person come to another decision, we've got to be able to approach it in a way that's very productive. So when you think about the word influence, which again is another very overused word, and it's sort of how do you define it? So let's define it first, right? So on a very, very basic level, influence can be defined as the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. Now, that's the definition of influence. I don't think it's the essence of influence. The essence of influence is pull as opposed to trying to push your will on someone, right? Great influencers, genuine influencers are never pushy, right? And that goes back to what you were saying. It's not a matter of pushing someone to take on your opinion, right? It's pull, it's an attraction. Genuine influencers attract people first to themselves and then to their ideas. Now, how do they do this? They do this through a focus on the other person, right? So the genuine influencers are going to ask themselves questions such as, how does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their needs, with their wants, with their desires? How does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their values? How am I helping them to overcome a problem? How am I helping to bring them closer to happiness? Because remember, and Dale Carnegie said this in his brilliant classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons, right? So when we approach influence this way, we're internally motivated, but we're outwardly focused. We understand it's got to be about the other person. When we do this, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment to our ideas.
And it's really powerful what you've said there, because you've touched upon points where it's not about just us. And we're brought up where the world is our bubble and we see everything from our internal perspective rather
Sure.
than looking at other people and thinking they have their bubble too. And I wonder what they're thinking and what's in it for them. And I'd love
Exactly.
for you to maybe give it a little bit of a story or a kind of an insight to what you've said in terms of how to start thinking about putting yourself in the other person's shoes, whether it's going into going home to a loved one or into an important business meeting, and how you can start really thinking about what are they thinking about and
Yeah.
creating that to create the influence there.
Yeah, and that's principle number 2 is to step into the other person's shoes, which,
Mhm.
sounds kind of like an easy thing to do because we always, we hear that expression a lot, step into the other person's shoes, but then you think of it, maybe it's not that easy to do because most of us have different size feet.
Mhm.
So literally, we can't step into the other person's shoes. Figuratively, we can't step into their minds because we're not them. We all come from our own unique way of looking at the world, our own bubble, as you talked about, our own belief system, our unconscious operating system. And we tend as human beings to think that other people see the world basically the way we do, but they don't. They see it the way they do from, again, I love your term, from their own bubble. So to step into another person's shoes, we can only do that through asking questions and discovering what they're thinking, right? And asking those questions and really listening, not listening in order to then speak, listening in order to truly understand. Also, knowing that, they may provide us with an answer, but what they say, we may interpret a certain way, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily what they mean. Because again, as human beings, we interpret words, we interpret thoughts, we interpret, right, different ways. So we have to gently and diplomatically be able to keep kind of drilling down and asking, when you say so and so, is there, and making sure we help them define their terms so that we are equipped to know their thoughts and to be able to serve them better. So, John and I say, listen, not just with your ears, that's the surface listening. Listen with your eyes, listen with your posture. Listen to, and John introduced me to this saying, listen with the back of your neck, right? I mean, really put the focus on, and when we do that, wow, it's amazing how we can step into their shoes. Now we can understand where they're coming from. And what happens is the other person feels heard. They feel understood, and they sense correctly that we have their best interest at heart. When that's the case, they're much more likely to have that sense of trust that will cause
Mhm.
them to then take, the appropriate action.
Trust is one of my favorite words because everything is about trust. And
Mm,
throughout the book, all of the elements having the best interest at heart, what the body language is saying, everything that you just spoke about is leading to, can I trust this person? Because whether it's in a relationship, at home, with your friends, in business, trust is the biggest element. I'd
yeah.
love for you to talk about influence and trust and how exactly we can build that in a really genuine and honest and open way.
Yeah, well, trust by definition is the assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something. Stephen M.R. Covey, son of Dr. Stephen Covey of Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen M.R. Covey, in his book, The Speed of Trust, breaks it down into character and competence. And we need to be able to trust both that the person is competent, of course, and that they have high character, right?
Mhm.
And so, how do we establish this? Well, we establish it and we communicate it through, again, focusing on that other person. It really comes down to that. Now, it's interesting because in the second book in the series, the Go Giver leader, Aunt Elle, who makes an appearance in the Go Giver influencer as well, but in the Go Giver leader, she was kind of the main mentor, and she explained to Ben, who was the protege, that what we have to offer, we give least of all through what we say, although what we say is also very important. More important is what we do, but most important is who we are. And we'll
Mm.
bring that to trust in a moment, because who we are, this is what character is all about, right? Now, character comes from an old Greek word meaning scrape or scratch. It came to mean an engraved marking and eventually a defining quality. Now, if one were to wax poetic, we could say that character is what happens when life etches or scratches itself onto your soul. But I'm not particularly poetic. So I like a defining quality, right? Perhaps more accurately, the sum total of all one's qualities is their defining quality or character. Now, it's interesting when it comes to trust. With people, with people of high character, Sabrina, they tend to they tend to stand for something, and we tend to always know where they stand. Now, this doesn't mean they
Mhm.
don't make mistakes. They're human, of course they do. It doesn't mean they course correct. They absolutely do. And it doesn't mean they won't be flexible on strategy. Absolutely they will. But when it comes to those values-based decisions, they are immutable, unmovable, and unchangeable. And that's why we respect them, and that's why we trust them.
Wow. I bet the listeners are going to be thinking, this is so true. And actually starting to implement that in their behaviors of who is their influence around them. And can they start to spot and see if there's similar traits there too?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point.
Hmm. Sure. Now, one aspect that I love to talk about, and I'm sure you will too, and I'm hoping you'll have a little cheeky smile. But how can we use influence when it comes to dating, when it comes to relationships? Because influence, in a sense, to get someone on a date now is a little bit tricky because there's so many barriers up. We can't see people as easier. How can we use it in a really positive way to create that connection, to create that trust, to allow that person to open up as well?
So, any principles of success tend to work really across the board, right? So when we
Mm.
say, success, there's, different forms. There's financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, all the different ways that success can be measured. I would also say that when it comes to, relationships or wanting to form a relationship with someone, basically, what are you doing? You're building a relationship. And the know, like, and trust is very important. Now, obviously, they've got to know you or know who you are, right? They
Mhm.
need to like you. I mean, I would think that's pretty obvious in terms of, someone wanting to date you. And then they have to trust you. And mainly, they need to trust that you have their best interests at heart. Okay. So, how does that happen? Again, I think it's who you are, but it's also through what you say, and it's through your interest in that other person. It's asking that person questions about themselves rather than telling them about yourself. That doesn't mean you're being secretive, but I mean you're asking questions about them. I often say to my audiences, "Have you ever been in a conversation with someone who let you do by talking about yourself? Didn't you come away afterwards saying, wow, what a fascinating conversationalist that person is," right? And because I think that's just very natural. But I do think it comes down to that to the degree that we focus on that other person, learning about them. Hey, it's sales in a sense, right? I mean, you're trying to discover what that other person needs, wants, and desires.
Hmm.
Now, here's the thing, just like sales, if your product or service isn't right for them based on what they need, want, or desire, you shouldn't sell it to them. And it's the same if you have a conversation or get to know someone and you're not the right person or they're not the what have you, you still want to be kind, you want to be nice, you want to be, of course, but it might not be a match. And I think when we kind of know what our personal values are and we can connect them to another person's values, then I think both people have a good idea as to whether there's a connection there or not.
I think you've illustrated that so beautifully because aspect that I love that you've just said is it's all about context. Are they the right person? Are they the right fit? And if they are you asking them enough about themselves for them to seem that they think they're interested and to have a really naturally flowing conversation? And it's so powerful throughout all of your books, how
Yeah.
you've been able to use the concepts and bring them into different situations and story like telling, which I think is really, really impactful.
So I've
Now,
got to tell you this, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just thinking based on what you were saying. Now, John David Mann, my co-author, right? He and his wife, Anna, and Anna was a marriage family therapist and so forth. They've actually written a parable. I'm not involved in this one, but they wrote a parable together called The Go-Giver Marriage. And it will be coming out in a few weeks from when we're speaking. And I got to read the draft of it, and it's a wonderful parable. But they took the basic principles from the Go Giver, and they actually put it within the context of a story about a marriage. So I thought that was
Wow.
really cool, based on what you brought up.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to read that one. That will definitely be a gem. Now, Bob, you are so well known within the industry. And I think one of the biggest impacts is referrals. Everyone loves you when you get onto stage because you're able to captivate the audience. You're
Thank
able to really get them to understand where you're coming from, but contextualize what you're saying as well.
thank
What
you.
would be kind of a leading gem that you could leave these listeners here about whether they really want to, go forward and potentially read the book if they haven't, or reread it, and then how can they start implementing some of the principles into their own life too?
It's a great question, and I think as far as whether it would be a good read for someone, it sort of depends upon, like anything else, what they're looking to accomplish. So, where the original book, The Go Giver, was really for entrepreneurs and salespeople to just kind of understand how focusing on providing or giving immense value to others is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. So that would be for the entrepreneur. Now, the person who is more interested in influence, or what we call people skills, that would be someone who maybe the Go Giver Influencer would be the
Mm.
one that they would want to read. The Go Giver Influencer, John and I wrote because we really saw how, these days more than ever, there's so much, not only disagreement, there's always disagreement, that's part of life, but so much vitriol in the way people are disagreeing with each other. We wanted to kind of bring out a way that you could engage other people with whom you disagree or who don't agree with you, and do so in a way that's kind, that's tactful, that's effective, and allows you to stay congruent with your value system.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Bob, it's been an absolute pleasure
Uh,
having you on Rethink the Story. I'd love to hear what you're currently reading now.
oh, let's see. So I'm always reading 4 or 5 books at a time. Now, one of them is Gino Wickman's book Traction, Get a Grip on Your
Ooh.
Business, which is sort of a systemization for business, and it's very, very good. I'm rereading The Science of Getting Rich, which is a 1910 book by Wallace D. Wattles. In fact, I just received as a gift an original, a retro first
Wow.
edition of it. So I'm very excited about that. Please forgive me for turning my back on you for a moment. Um, I'm rereading the book The Art of Living Consciously by Nathaniel Branden, which is one of my all-time favorite books. And I'm reading a book by Robert Greene called The Daily Laws, which
Ah.
is sort of a compendium of several of his books from him that I've read in the past. And he does take like a once a day study. So it's really it's really kind of a neat thing that I'm really enjoying. But I so enjoy reading books. There's so much to learn from so many people, and it's just been a real, it's been a fun part of my life to be able to learn vicariously, from people, from whether it's modern authors or whether it's the Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and so forth, from thousands of years ago, or so it's really a neat thing.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And my face lights up when I see your bookshelf behind you as well. Now, Bob, you've definitely intrigued and created a lot of curiosity to our listeners today. Where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Um, Sabrina, the best place is Burg. I try to keep things very simple. So it's Burg.com.
Amazing.
And while they're there, if they scroll down to a place where it looks like a few people at a coffee shop, which of course is Rachel's Famous Coffee, which if you read the first book, you know. In that, if they click on that, that goes to a membership site that my brilliant business partner Kathy Tajanel and I put together called the Go Giver Success Alliance. So if they would like to come to that and see what it's about, we have several members of the UK who are members as well. We'd love to have them check it out if they'd like.
I appreciate it. Well, today has been an absolute pleasure, Bob.
Wonderful.
This book by yourself and John, as well as the work that you're doing with Cassie, is amazing behind the scenes. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for joining, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
The pleasure's been mine. Thank you so much, Sabrina.